Uh, no, this is gonna. We are already off the rails, and it's been 2 seconds. Good lord. Hi, folks. Hi, I'm Jonah, program director for the Star Wars Unlimited Judge program. Today, joined by my cohorts, my co-conspirators, I think is probably the best term for the Galactic Championships. These are going to be the members of the head judge team. We're going to go around and do brief introductions. I'm going to skip myself because I'm going to be ego-eyes a little bit here and assume that everybody knows who I am. Ben, why don't you start us off? Who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm seeing no audio on Ben. Okay, that's an issue on my end. Why didn't we have audio do what we wanted it to do? They are saying zero audio. They can hear me. They can't hear any of you. Oh boy. Yeah. They are doing a test. Hello. We know that you can't hear them. I am working on solving that. No, I cannot multitask like that. Yeah, I have an audio output capture that is just not picking anything up. Uh, da, da, da. Yeah. That is why we are adding. We're futzing around, changing things. Uh, add. No, why aren't you? Yeah, keep on trying sign language while I can. No. Also, no. Why? Look, we have audio output working elsewhere. This is. Yeah, we're using OBS. We have desktop audio. Why? We're capturing from the right device, I think. We're gonna. I know that they can hear me. Why does it? Aha. Folks, try saying something now.
Something now.
Something.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
All right.
Hi.
Should be, folks. I think I'm seeing the desktop audio bar going. I think we've solved it. Hooray, we solved it. Okay, Ben, who are you? What are you doing here?
My name is Ben Petrilla. I'm from Colorado. I've been judging for 21 years.
Oh, you figured out the number this time.
Math is hard.
So the first time around, when you couldn't hear Ben, just said a long time.
He's had this long to think about it.
I had a long time to think about it.
Yeah.
I've always loved Star Wars, so I'm very excited to be involved in the first Galactic Championship.
Sick. Next, Amanda. You're next in my line of sight.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda, and I'm going to be head judge for the Open on Saturday. Really excited to this event. I also been judging for a while across a few different games. And some of you might have worked with me at the sector qualifier in Denver. I'm really excited to be here.
Seth, you're next.
Oh, cool. Hey, I'm Seth. You may have seen me at Denver. I wasn't the head judge there, but I was around. I was one of the head judges at Richmond. I have also been judging for a while, but not as long as the rest of them. Although I have been judging Star Wars as long as anyone here. So that's pretty cool. And I was the head judge of the Biattle, the Boston Invitational in Atlanta, which was a sweet Team Trios event, which I am excited to run back when it happens again.
Have I talked with you yet about Team Trilogy?
Are we talking 3 decks or 9 decks?
9 decks.
Oh, yeah. Then no.
Great. Ward, last and least.
My name is Ward. Many of you, if you went to one of the sectors or regionals, have interacted with me in my normal role, which is out of a TO. For the GC, I will be performing in one of the assistant head judge roles. And yeah, looking forward. I've been a Star Wars fan almost since Star Wars came out. Yeah, I'm that old. But yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm gonna dig through the questions on Discord. I'm gonna pull them up on my phone. We're not gonna go in any sequence order other than the order I read them. Of course, if y'all have questions in chat, we're gonna go on tangents. We're gonna talk about things. This is very formal and professional, as it always is here. So our first question: if someone, not naming names, were to build a deck specifically so we can get rulings on cards that we have outstanding clarifications on, would those rulings be documented somewhere public, and how upset would y'all be if this happened? What's wrong, Headkid? Did you not expect me to read your question? It's right there. We're going to start there.
I'll go. All right. So don't do that. I wouldn't expect those rulings to be final or official until we've been given an actual clarification from FFG. There are times that the head judges of an event has to make a ruling based on the information available to them and through the head judge team. But until we get clarification, those may remain mysteries.
As an example, in Richmond, I made a ruling on Pilot Luke that did not end up being the case once we got a clarification from the team at FFG, but was the case
the Pilot Luke with
in Richmond.
Luke?
Yes.
Yeah. I think similarly, we had that question come up in Milan and then in Liverpool. And we were like, it can be either way. We're going to make a decision. We're just going to stick to that decision and make sure that the judges on the floor know that this is what we've decided what the ruling is. Alrighty.
Can I answer the latest chat question?
Oh, absolutely.
Or it's not really a question, but
Yeah.
Somebody commented on not knowing how your deck works until the highest level competition. Obviously, we would prefer that not be the case. Obviously, we would love if all of the rules were official and clarified and everything was nailed down. But the game is still new, and so some of that is just still being worked out. And so hopefully, as we go farther and further, that will be less and less, and we can be more and more consistent. But for now, we just try to be as consistent as possible.
Fantastic. All right, I have a batch of questions. So, with a continuation on those pending clarifications, we have a bunch of them. Some of them are rules, some of them are policy. They are currently over in the hands of FFG. We're waiting on those clarifications. What's our plan? What are we going to do anything about those pending clarifications if we don't get an answer for those by the time the event begins?
Is that a question for you, Jonah?
I think that might be a question for me. But honestly, if they are things that we think that are going to come up frequently, which is more likely with policy than with rules, we'll tell people this is generally what our guidance is here. I think one of the other questions is what sort of education are we doing for the event staff? There's going to be pre-event briefings that are going to be sent out through email and Discord. There's going to be training the day before that goes into more detail. And then the morning of each event, there's also going to be further briefings that reinforce everything on top of the education that Cascade has been putting out at this point for days or weeks or months. Oh boy.
Speaking
will
of
say-
tournament communication,
Yeah.
check for your make sure you check for role requests if you're on the event. We should be sending some surveys out. Either we just did or we will be very shortly. So be looking for those. To let us
Jonah
know your
post-
plans.
Jonah posted in the Aces Discord, I think yesterday.
Okay.
Yes. Cool.
I
Another.
wasn't sure what went to us versus what
No,
went to
yeah. And I think I sent an email to everybody who is working as a floor judge on anywhere. Folks who are on Prizewall registration, scorekeeping, those folks are going to be handled separately. Alrighty, this next one is a little bit broad, and I have my own answer for it, but I think you all can also have your answers. So, long term, the goal for Galactics is head judges are certified level 5 Star Wars Unlimited judges. Raise your hand if you're one of those. Great. Team leads are level 4s, and floor judges are, at minimum, level 3 judges. We have some level 2 educational content, and nobody's been tested for level 2 yet. Do you have any concerns going into this first event, this huge event with 2,000 players, being one of the largest TCG events in the past, 5 years, with a staff that doesn't have these certifications? Yeah.
I think you have to start somewhere. So I've judged for other games as they started up and were newer, and you don't always have the levels cemented from the start, but you staff people who know as much as anybody else, or you are the best guess about that, and then we all work together and we make sure we use our experts and we use our resources and talk to each other and confirm maybe more than we would have once we get a little further along. But yeah, that's my perspective on it.
I will say for the program itself, from sectors in Denver to regionals in Minneapolis, you've seen a significant amount of growth in the judges and their abilities. Some of it is just working the events.
What did you see?
But as more more confidence, more understanding kind of the structure of large events. So you knew in how your lessons talked, if you're on this team, this is what's expected of me. And then more interaction with the higher level or the head judges, just more this is what I think is happening, not I'm not sure what to do here kind of thing. But it's just, I assume it will continue to grow. And as Amanda said, we'll probably communicate a bit more, but we are we can talk with each other. Fantasy Flight is there. We have the ability to run these events with the judge staff that we currently have.
Cool.
Seth, do you have anything? I have something, but I want to.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot, so.
And you want to have the last word on this? I understand.
No, I'm going to give Jonah the last word. Jonah the last word.
At any event that I work, if I'm not the one taking the call, I have concerns that the call isn't being answered or something isn't being done the way that I want to do it. But I don't necessarily have the best way of doing something, and I don't think that doing it my way or the highway is correct. So people having different levels of experience, bringing their own take on an approach on how to address a situation, I think it'd be useful because it teaches me and it could be better than what I have. That being said, in Richmond and in Denver, I got to see a little bit of what Ben was talking about with judges growing over the course of the weekend, and I'm excited for that. I spoke to quite a few players after both events who were all very happy with the way that their judge calls went, and I hope that we can, if we could do that then we can do that and more in just a few weeks.
All right, Ward, what do you got for us? Are you cracking your knuckles?
No. So one of the things I want to point out, Amanda's mentioned it and Ben has mentioned it specifically, and I think Seth was along the same path, but we grow the more of these we do. One of the things that I've seen a lot is there are some people who are so invested in the rules of this game and have such an in-depth knowledge of the rules and the clarifications and things that, I have a full-time job that keeps my attention on many different things, so I don't have the time to invest that I would love to memorize all of these things. But in chat, actually, I think that's Ashlyn, said, please ask me how nested crate works instead of making me DQ someone. We have many experts in many different parts of the event and the way the event flows, and the reason that you all are on staff is that you all provide something, and making sure that we have folks where they need to be, and making sure that we know our resources. So please fill out Jonah's.
It's our form.
Fill out Jonah's form, so that we know what you're interested in, what you're interested in learning, what you're interested in doing, so that we can put you where you are the most useful for us, where you're the most useful for you, and where you can enjoy your event and learn the most. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that we have to go forward with. We've got a bunch of level 1s, we've got some level 0s, we've got some people who are just here for the love of the game, but we all can work together to make this the best event it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think somebody commented, I think it might have been in the thread, it might have been one of y'all, but that rules isn't even the most challenging part of the game, and or of judging, and I agree with that. Like there are a lot of aspects to judging beyond just the rules, beyond just the policy. There's the how to take a call, and there's what you're looking for when you're investigating, and there's other aspects. There's the logistics of running, especially at these large events, all of the different side events and all of the different moving pieces of things that are going on, and so everybody that has skills in different areas of that, and so we'll really be pulling on those different things and hopefully learning from each other.
I've gotten the opportunity to work as the lead for Star Wars at a few SCG cons, and in that role, even in any role where I'm judging, but especially for Star Wars, I think maybe 20 minutes of my weekend was spent actually answering calls, because that is such a small portion of what ends up happening. Not necessarily because there were also a ton of calls. There just weren't always. So there are a lot of these other aspects, as Amanda is talking about, that we'll be able to focus on.
I have some thoughts. Everybody's shocked. I think one of the big ones is levels are floors, not ceilings. And so folks being level 1 for this means that they are somewhere between what we expect from a level 1 and perfect. And we haven't evaluated for that yet. There might be people on staff who have never judged any other TCG who are already operating at a level 2 level, operating at a level 3 level. I wouldn't be surprised if there are folks who are getting close to like level 4 level. I have very high standards for what level 5 is. I don't think I'm there. I don't think I'll ever be there, but everything short of perfection is irrelevant, as I like to say and believe for myself, which is not healthy. It's fine, don't worry about it. But folks being level 1 for this, or being apprentices for this, doesn't mean that they're not qualified for this. It just means that they don't have a number next to their name that says that they are. And that number next to their name has some meaning. It is helpful for tournament organizers when they're making staffing decisions. But there are people who know the rules really well. There are people who are very good at leading a team who haven't done it in this context before and don't have a big number next to their name, and that doesn't mean they're bad at it. Plus, I think one of the most valuable things is getting fresh blood in, as Seth was saying. When you have... So I think across the 5 of us, we have close to 70, maybe 80 years of doing this. And when you've been doing something for that long, not to say any one of us has been doing it for 80 years, but when you've been doing it for many, many years,
Maybe
you're
Ward.
just like... this is how it's done, and you don't think about how you do it. It's just reflexive. And then somebody comes in and says, why are we doing it this way? This seems silly to me. And that starts a conversation, and you can say, well, historically we needed to do this to make sure that the paper deck lists were kept organized. Wait a second, we haven't had paper deck lists in a while. We haven't had to deal with match slips. Maybe we can reconfigure our thinking on this. Or it's, we do this to ensure that prize distribution, which has remained the same, is smoother in 8 hours. And you, as somebody on your first event, aren't going to notice that correlation between these two things. I've been doing this for a decade. I know this correlation because I have suffered through it many, many times. But people just coming in and being like, that's strange that you're doing it that way. Why are you doing it that way? I'm not going to question what I'm doing because I'm not going to be thinking about it a lot of the time. The way I answer calls is so automatic. Like, I don't think about the words that I'm saying. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I don't think about a lot of the words that I say when I'm judging because I've said them so many times. My opening announcements, how I start a round, how I end a round, those aren't words that I am constructing. They're just, I press play in my head and then the words come out and I'm thinking about something else.
There was a question: are we doing match slips and paper, etc.? No. Well, we may do some amount of paper for pairings. We're still discussing that, but not for match slips. Or
I miss match slips. I miss them.
What? No.
There was one other question that asked. Can I derail us?
Oh, please, yes. Derailing is the point of the show.
So there was a question about the best introductory leadership.
That's a good question. I like this.
And so I think that depends somewhat on the event and the tournament organizer and kind of how they structure things, because they do structure things differently sometimes. For this type of event, we're going to be splitting people up. We're going to be splitting pretty much everybody up into teams, kind of across all of the different events. And so I think some of those team leads will be of kind of smaller teams. That's a good place to start. Whether that's on one of the smaller events, one of the bigger events. I think a normal progression, I would say you would start as a team lead on maybe a smaller competitive event. So have a team of like 2 to 3 judges and then kind of step up from there. We may be kind of accelerating some people just based on experience for this event. But there's where I would say on starting. Y'all have anything to add to that?
I would agree with Amanda. Like, the Star City run sectors and regionals had the promo event on Sunday, which was a smaller event with smaller teams. That's kind of a good place to start. Like, it gives you kind of the experience of actually being in charge of a team without the, there's 2,000 players and I'm dealing with pairings for all of that. You can kind of learn how to run a team, and then you can apply how the team does things to more. But smaller events, I mean, they were like 400 people, but there's at some point you have to step up, because the difference between your planetary qualifier in your store, where you're the judge, to I have a bunch of people, is at some point there's going to be a jump somewhere. So you do have to kind of you take the opportunity if you can on the smaller event. Galactic has a couple 256 player events. Brandon, I assume, will probably make teams for there. That might be another opportunity.
Somebody asked about reporting results if someone doesn't have their phone. So there will be stages with scorekeepers, and people can always go to the scorekeepers to report if they aren't able to report on their phone, or if their opponent reports. That also works if we get at least one of the two reported.
As an addition to that, and then going back to the leadership question, one of the challenges of running digital match result entry and paper match result entry is that people will do one or the other and not both, and then we'll have 2 incomplete data sets rather than one mostly complete data set. Also, given the number, in my experience, you get 1, maybe 2 people per 100 who are just not able to report their match result, which means 20 to 40 people out of Galactics, but that means that they also need to be paired up against somebody else who also cannot report results for it to be a practical issue. Cycling back to leadership, because I know how to bring us back from a tangent. I have practice. I see there being two broad categories of leadership roles. There is task management and task completion, and then there's managing people. And so if you want to get experience being responsible for a task, just be like, hey, can you put me in charge of sending people to tables during end of round? That's not even a team lead position, but it's a position of authority where you are telling other judges what to do, and you're making sure that the task gets done. There's a bunch of other small tasks where you have some amount of authority, like you are in charge of your partner, and you make sure that your pair out of a team of like 4 or 5, but your pair gets your deck checks done every round. And so you're just focusing on task completion, or it's post pairings, takedown pairings, something small. The other side is leading 1 or 2 people. So being a head judge of planetary qualifier, there you have to manage tasks and you're leading a couple of people. Being a floor team lead on a mid-size event, an event that has a couple hundred players, you're in charge of 2 judges, maybe 3. And so there are not a lot of people and personalities for you to juggle, but you get experience making sure that people are being taken care of, that the people who have more experience are mentoring those who have less experience, that folks are taking their breaks, that everybody's having a good time. And then you can start bringing them together. I think in one of the recent lessons, or a lesson that's coming out soon, I talk about a path from floor judge to point person to team lead to leading on sides to, like, there's a whole route that I have roughly pathed out where it's more responsibility on either task or people until you get to the point where you're in charge of a 2,000 player event, so you're in charge of all of those people, and also you have 50 floor judges that are nominally your responsibility, but then you just delegate it to other people. That's the real trick of leadership. Just tell other people to do it for you.
No, that is 100% true, and that it
Delegate but confirm. And so,
it
so even when you do have other people do it for you, you're still making sure that those things happen, because at the end of the day, you still have that responsibility. So
the biggest note that I have for first-time people in leadership roles is almost always delegate more. It's really easy to think that being good at the task means that you're going to be good at leading people to do the task, and that is not the case at all. You need to know how to do the task, and you should be good at it. But you're, like I said before, I delegate my floor judges to answer calls, and that happens for a reason. It's so that if a player has a problem or if they want to appeal, they have the option to do that. If the head judge takes that initial call, who do you go to after this? If Jonah takes your call, you can't appeal to anyone else because that's where the buck stops.
I am the
and
Senate.
Yeah, we are collectively. What is Palpatine's dude with the staff called?
Masameda.
Yeah, we're collectively Masameda.
But Jonah's in charge of us, so that's not true.
Palpatine was in charge of Masameda. He was, God, who are his other flunkies? Anyways, I don't need to get that far off track. All right. So I think that answers the leadership question. I think that answers the education question. Yes, Sly Moore, who has the control question. Wolfstrider562 asks, what is everyone's favorite leader in the game? It's not related to Galactic Championship, but this is asking questions about who we are as judges, and our judge style is also entirely on the table. It doesn't just have to be about the events. So, favorite leaders?
I'll be right back.
Oh, bye, Sam.
Mine is Darth Vader from Jump to Light Speed.
Yeah?
I really enjoy making TIE fighters, and I started trying to build that before people were like, oh, this might actually kind of be good.
Is your version of it good?
It was not. That's why I copied someone else's who was good.
Who else got an answer?
I got an answer. If I can pull it out.
Oh.
Show and tell time.
Yeah. You can't even see that. It's the pre-release promo Vader from Set 1. It just feels so cool to play him.
Yeah.
That's it.
It
I
just
thought that I
feels
had
cool.
the I thought I had my the one that I had that's signed by some folks, but I couldn't find that one in 30 seconds. So,
How dare you?
but I do really like that whole Vader blue feeling. Blue vigilance, aggression, villainy just feels right.
Ward
Okay.
Amanda?
I'm holding out for an Ewok leader.
That's fair. That's super legit.
I'm a big fan of Set One Vader.
Oh, copycat.
Control. Yeah. The control play styles really call to me, and that was one of my favorite decks to play very early on.
So
Yeah.
mechanically,
So is that like everybody picked Darth Vader? What?
hold on. Mechanically, Nala say, because clones. Character wise, probably like
Just say Darth Vader. We know you're going to.
no. Vader isn't up there for me. Like Revan or Anakin, but also like mechanically, Flip Palp from Twilight.
Yeah.
You like the weird single aspect or flip aspect ones.
Look, those cards just say, please ignore the rules of the game. Your life will be harder. And that's what I love in games. Just being like, huge tangent. Right now I'm playing Path of Exile, an action RPG. I'm playing a witch, which is, spellcaster. My build is melee. I'm playing, we're just doing attacks in melee because there's some really neat things that you can do that are not necessarily good, but it sure does look neat.
If you're not just playing Spark Witch and just standing in the corner and lighting the screen up and then watching everything die.
Face to face with the boss, hitting them with a couple of swords. It's working surprisingly well.
He'd rather die in a cool way than just metagame.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God. We're gonna talk about the other game for a second. I had a commander deck that was just, I called it, we're not playing Magic anymore, and all it did was just change the rules of the game fundamentally. Like, targets chosen at random, spells, they're randomized, costs randomized. Like, you don't actually get to play Magic, and that was my favorite thing ever. And nobody other than me had any fun because they didn't actually, they're like, I want to play a game of Magic, and I'm like, great, we're gonna play a random number generator instead.
So we had a question in the chat about
a relevant one.
Yeah, relevant.
There's
one.
a couple that I actually really liked.
Yeah.
The question was, what was our most memorable judge call, and what was our most difficult judge call, if not the same?
Oh.
Okay, well let's cover the first half first. What's your most memorable judge call?
Gosh.
So I was gonna say, I think the bad ones are the ones that unfortunately stick in your mind, right?
Yeah.
That I've had a lot of good calls over the years, but the hard ones, the ones that the players are upset, that you walk away not knowing if you were right or wrong. Those are the ones that you dwell on a little bit, and then they get stuck. So I think the one that's jumping out at me right now, actually Ben probably remembers, and it was a really late in the day, and we had a player who was asking a pretty complicated. This is another game, so I'm not going to get into details, but was asking a pretty complicated question about the rules of the game, and didn't understand how their deck worked. And we were trying to explain it. I was obviously not getting through to the player. Well, I think I got called in as the second person on this. Like, the first person wasn't getting through to the player. I got called in as the lead for that side event, I think, and still wasn't getting through to them. I called another judge in. We just weren't, and the player was pretty upset. And I've at that point I finally just had to say, this is the rule, and I need you to continue with your game. But it sticks in my mind because the player was upset. We were tired. It was hard, and so yeah. Unfortunately, not the most positive story, but that's the one that sticks in my mind.
Seth?
My most memorable call isn't mine exactly, but I was there for it, if that counts. it was a different game, but it worked. It will work, or it does work, the same as in Star Wars. It was a the equivalent of a card manipulation error, and just like in Star Wars, the fix was, well, you have too many cards in your hand. We're going to reveal your hand. Your opponent's going to choose one, and that's going to get shuffled into your deck. And this is while the player is resolving a Spark of Rebellion effect. So just to clear it up a little bit, let's say I'm playing Jonah. Jonah Sparks of Rebellion me, and I realize that I have too many cards in hand, and so I call over a judge, and the judge, figures it out and says, okay, great, so you're going to do the thing, and then your opponent's still going to get the Spark to resolve. So they're going to end up with 2 cards out of your hand. And so I reveal my hand, and then Jonah says, I can't beat that, and concedes.
Did the player just notice that they had the extra card when the opponent was about to see?
No,
their
this
hand?
wasn't cheating. This wasn't cheating.
That's very convenient.
There, it had something. There was something else going on. Look, like I said, I didn't take the call. I just really like the idea of I'm gonna get 2 cards out of your hand, and I still can't beat what else you've got going on. Let's just go to the next game.
So I think it's not necessarily one particular call, but it's the first Star Wars Unlimited event that I was the head judge of. Was one of the PQs in the very, very first batch. It was about a 5-hour drive from my house, and I had driven down, and I was told that I was going to be myself and 2 other judges to work this event, and then it turned out that the 2 other judges that had been slated for the event were LGS store employees who really didn't know much about the game. And we ended up coming up with ways to utilize them that made it fine for what was effectively a 1v88 judging experience. And I remember at one point I had a very lengthy judge call that was a life total discrepancy where the base health players didn't agree. And it took us a while to figure out that someone had just written down damage twice from an effect. Like, they both were writing base health down, but they were also keeping track of it on the bases, and numbers didn't match across the players. And when we did the investigation into the thing, we ended up determining that someone had just written down twice, but it didn't get noted on the base. And so but it took us about 15 minutes to figure it out. But that's probably the one for Star Wars Unlimited that stands out.
Gosh.
For me, I was going to say the one that Amanda stole, so I will go for a different one.
Well, you can tell your side, because your side's very interesting in this story.
So I was the 3rd judge brought into that situation.
Oh no.
And it was just the player believed their cards worked one way, and they didn't work that way, and it became down to like an agreement or disagreement basically of how the wording of the cards worked. And a thing you'll get good as you judge more is kind of answering things in multiple ways. And I tried to do that in like every way that I could figure out. And it got to the point where there was both the player was getting very frustrated, and their opponent also did not want to be in this situation, especially because there was now, I don't know, probably 4 judges at the end, like multiple head judges plus me and then the judge who originally took it. So it's just like at some point you kind of have to get, as Amanda said, that you just have to make a ruling. This is what is happening. You can give the option to the player to continue to talk to them after the event or after the round, but you just have to move on. And it's not great when players are very upset about what's happening. It doesn't feel good as a judge, but as you get into leadership positions, it's also just kind of a thing that you will deal with. And it just was not a fun situation, so it's very memorable. I still sometimes see that player at events, and it's not a pleasant. It always brings up, hey, this was a bad interaction we had several years ago, and it just feels raw anytime I see that player.
I think the other kind of takeaway is if you are a floor judge on the call, and someone is upset about your ruling, they don't have to use the words "I want to appeal." for you to treat it that way and to go get your lead or your head judge if you're on a competitive event. Do go ahead and get somebody else involved. Get them that a second opinion, even if they aren't using the exact words "I want to appeal" or anything or words of that sort. So give them that opportunity. They don't always know the right words. And then I think the other takeaway there, and one thing we didn't handle well, because we don't always do things perfectly right, is don't ever let it get up to 5 judges on one match. It overwhelmed the player, and that made the situation worse. And general rule of thumb, two judges on a call is great. The first judge who answers the call should continue the call and make the ruling. Second judge is there to shadow, to provide feedback after the fact, or if they differ, to tap the first judge and say, hey, can we talk about away from the table? Go have a discussion about it, come back. Third judge sometimes, especially if a team leader or a head judge gets involved, but pretty rare. Like, you want to keep it to 2 ideally. And any more than that, and you start overwhelming the players, and it really impacts their match, even if you get things resolved perfectly.
Yeah, I think as like a best practice, you have yourself, you consult with another judge or a shadow. If you need to get a third, it should be a team leader, a head judge. And at that point, probably one of the, like, you brief the head judge, and the second judge who was assisting the first at that point no longer needs to be a part of the call. You want the original person there because they got that information initially, they've been there the whole time. And then you want your Palpatine, your Senate, who can just be the final authority, and try to keep from overwhelming. Sometimes you do need extra bodies if you are wrangling multiple spectators as witnesses, or you need to separate the players, and you want one like, if the players are on the verge of like being problems, you want to separate them, and having a judge with them, and then having yourself and the initial judge off to the side. So I can see a situation where you have 4, but at that point the head judge is involved. Don't go above 2 without getting a head judge or team lead involved. To answer the question for memorable and then moving on to difficult, I'm not going to pick one because I'm a problem. Y'all had there's so many. One of them I was reminded of because of Seth's, where a player forgot to defeat a resource for Han 1. They had played a thing. They hadn't used the resource, but both they and their opponent had done calculations based on that resource existing and taken actions based on that extra resource existing. I felt like it was something that I could reasonably back up, and so I'm like, hey, we're going to be able to back up to the point of error. We're going to play on from here. The player who committed the error didn't like that solution, was like, look, I think I've screwed up too much. I'm going to concede. So they do, and I'm like, you're allowed to. I want to be clear, not a game loss. We can fix this. And they're like, nope, I'm going to concede. I think that's fair. And I'm like, totally an option on the table. Their opponent was like, yeah, but you had me dead to rights, so I'm going to concede game 2. Note that this is the quarterfinals, so it's single limb. They just go to game 3. They play a best of 1 in the quarterfinals, and I'm like, that's going to stick with me for a while, because again, I feel like I could have done better explaining to the player, hey, this doesn't need to be a game loss. We can play this full match. We can fix this. We can get a mostly organic result out of this. And then they would have played a natural best of 3 instead of just swapping to a best of 1. The other one that's stuck with me just forever is my first disqualification, because it was the easiest disqualification I've had in my career. I was handing out prize tickets for a just on-demand draft. It's the finals. It's the end of the weekend. It's like 9 p.m. on a Sunday. And I hand down these tickets and say, these are on the table. And one of the players says, no, that's on the table, and points to a pile of cash. And so I ask, what's that? And the player says, oh, my buddy and I are betting on the outcome of this match. I'm like, that is actually just the textbook definition of gambling and not allowed. And so I finished my investigation and say, hold right here, I'm going to go get an adult, and went and got my team lead. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I have disqualification. But that one's just stuck with me because sometimes disqualifications are very easy. Other times, some of the most difficult calls I've had, in fact, I think all of the most difficult calls I've had, other than like just really messy life total discrepancies or card counting scenarios. Like, those are mathematically complex, but cheating disqualifications are frequently mechanically complex, and also you have to navigate this thing where you go to somebody and say, hey, I think that you are lying to me, or I think that you did this thing that you knew you weren't allowed to do on purpose. And those are always very, very difficult. Does anybody want to add on to difficult? It feels like for Amanda and Ben, the memorable call is also the difficult call. But if anybody wants to add on there.
That one plus, I mean, there's a bunch of DQs that also stick out as, and probably one of those more difficult, but that one that we were just talking about, that definitely is up there.
Yeah. Are you talking complex, or are you talking difficult when you walk away, you're like, man, that call was tough? Because there are those. I actually had one recently at an event where at the end of the call, I felt it ended up being a disqualification, but I actually felt it was tough for me personally, because the person was someone who I've been friends on Facebook with for the past 15, 20 years. And I get called over by their opponent. They explain to me what's going on. This is not a close friend by any stretch of the imagination, but someone who I've seen a lot over the last 20 years. And after doing an amount of investigation, I come to the realization that one of two things is true, and one of them is definitely not true. And if that's the case, then the other alternative is that this thing happened that shouldn't have, and this person definitely knows better. So I only have one option available to me. So that's an example of a difficult call. That's just, it's not difficult because of what's happening physically with the game and the rules and the policy, but it's difficult because you have to go up to this person who you've known forever and be like, you know you're not allowed to do this, and you're leaving me with the only option. So
yeah, I mean, a majority of my disqualifications have been difficult in that sense of, I come out of it and it was 60%. I was pretty confident, or sometimes even more, but that they did the thing on purpose, and obviously I knew they broke a rule, but intention matters, and so judging intention is hard. And so you get done and you're like, well, was I right? Like, did they do that on purpose? And I want to believe players. That's a thing I know about myself, right? And I factor that in when I'm doing the investigation on probabilities that they're telling me the truth, and what facts can I gather to support one side of the story or the other. But at the end, I want to believe them. So even after I've DQ'd them, half the time I'm still going over those things in my head. So
I'm gonna point out that chat has so kindly pointed out that we're on the fast train to nowhere, and we've answered 2 to 3 questions in 40 minutes.
Yeah, but chat is also, you know how carcinization is when things become crabs? Chat is doing the thing where the judge program becomes the empire again.
What? I don't.
That's empire empirification.
Anyways, I've
been saving that for a while.
Go with a quick example of a complex call, not like emotionally difficult, but just mechanically complex, where somehow, for some reason, a player had picked up their discard and had mixed it in with their resources. And untangling that was so much fun. Because it's like, okay, do we know how many resources you had? Great. Thankfully we did. We didn't have to do it, like, player had played a resource every turn. Opponents, like, I can confirm they've played a resource every turn. Last turn they played, like, a 4 and a 3 and exhausted everything. I'm on 7, they should be on 7. This makes sense. Or they should be on 8 now because it was last turn. Great. We should have 8 resources, which means we should have this many cards in discard. Cool. Let's take a look at opponent's discard. What cards do you have here? Oh, look. A bunch of removal events. Do you remember what unit you used takedown on? Great. Let's take care of that. This unit is dead. How did your unit... How is it defeated? Oh, it was in combat with the Sabine. That Sabine's also been defeated because it's certainly not in play. Okay, active player, what cards did you play? And just going through that process, it was a relatively long call, but by the time we were done untangling and got to the point where we were 100% certain, we were like, okay, there are 2 cards left that are as close to functionally identical as you can get in this deck, plus this deck has no way to pull anything out of discard or from resources, like it's not running tech or any smug things. And so, like, being in discard and being in resources are equally inaccessible to this deck. And so, like, opponent, you're going to just pick one of these 2 to put in discard. The other one's going to be in the resources, and we're going to play on from here. And that one was nice and complicated, but I just love those. Figuring out facts from something that just seems very messy.
There was a good question. Is there anything new that we may not have experienced at any other tournament so far that we should expect for Galactics?
The intensity of coverage. So this is some information that I've heard from other TCGs that are running Disney IP, aka Lorcana, and from my understanding of conversations with folks about what the stream is going to be for this, it is going to be an IP-free stream other than things that FFG has the rights to, which is their art, their logos, which means that if you are judging and you have, like, a clothing brand logo that is apparent on your pants, they're going to be like, here's a piece of black duct tape, cover that up. For players, I believe the plan is, like, I know for Lorcana, they had, like, hoodies to cover up anything that was not just, like, monochromatic or just, like, somebody had a NASA t-shirt and they're like, can't broadcast that, we don't have the rights to broadcast NASA. Somebody else just had, like, a major clothing brand, and it's like, no, we don't, like, we can't show the gap. We're not going to do that. Here's a hoodie for you to cover that up. I think for sleeves, players who are on camera, if they don't have, like, monochromatic or game-genic sleeves, they might be provided sleeves to make sure that everything is on brand. Coverage is going to be different than it has been at any other Star Wars Unlimited event, and it's going to be different than it is at most TCG events. So even if you've done coverage for large event, it's going to be very different than it was at sectors and regionals.
I think the other thing for Galactics versus maybe the sector qualifiers or any other events that you worked this year is just the size and scale. It's going to be larger, and there will be more going on.
Or me in this role as opposed to the role that or that any of us have had at regionals or sectors. At an event with 600-800 people, you can usually look out and get some of a sense of what's going on the floor and how things are to some extent from the stage. But with 2,000 people, it's just, you can't. I haven't had the experience of being in this role for that large an event, but I know that what'll be different for me is how I get information about what the floor looks like and the communication that needs to happen, but from floor judges to team leads to head judges.
Cool. For the folks who are complaining that we're not answering enough questions, question 1, who has the best name of the head judges and why is it Seth Arar? Coming from Seth Hellman. Question 2, what is Seth's favorite Lego set? And question 3, how does Seth feel about the new turbo tank?
All of us answer this question but Seth, right?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I think that's reasonable.
Well, clearly Ward has the best name.
If you all come up with different answers, I will tell you which ones are the correct ones.
Oh, are we answering for Seth?
Oh, yeah. These are questions for Seth that we are answering.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Oh, Seth would agree that Seth does not have the best name. What was the second one? Does Seth like the new turbo tank? Probably. Seth likes everything.
No.
I don't know. Maybe Seth doesn't like... Yeah. And then
What was
favorite
the
Lego
third?
set.
Seth's favorite Lego set. Ooh. Does it have to be a Star Wars Lego set?
No,
No.
it's an architecture set.
It's not the New York skyline,
Rivendell.
but it might be. It's not that either. For
Could
Seth,
be Tower of War, I think.
I don't know. Seth's favorite Lego set. I'm gonna go with probably the burger truck. Ben, your turn.
I would say that Seth is not the best name.
But would Seth say that?
Well, would Seth would also not say that. He thinks it's Jonah. I think he thinks the turbo tank is fine, not a great set. Favorite set is, I don't know, Avengers Tower.
It's a good one. It's a good set. Amanda?
No, find the Millennium Falcon.
No fine Millennium Falcon.
Which Millennium Falcon?
Yeah, there's like
The
5
big
now.
one.
The
The really
UCS.
big one.
The Ultimate
Yeah.
Collectors Series
Yeah.
1.
Well, there's 2 UCSs, but the new one is, I assume, what you're referring to.
Sure.
Seth, what?
Speaking of, did you see the new UCS Death Stars coming out this year?
Oh, yeah, that's what I said we were not going to be talking about.
Ford, weren't you just saying that we were going on too many tangents like a minute ago or 20 minutes
Legos
ago?
are not a tangent; it's a question.
Okay. Seth, what's the name of the set that I always confuse with the Imperial landing ship that you don't have?
The Nebulon.
No. There's a non-Star Wars set that I always confuse with the Imperial Lambda class shuttle.
Really?
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 Yes.
It has such a specific look. What?
No,
Non-Star
by
Wars?
name, by name, not by.
Oh,
look at all.
the Imperial Hotel.
Yes, that one.
All right.
What are the other answers, Jonah?
You think that the turbo tank is overpriced, and you should think that it should be a UT-AT instead of a turbo tank. Turbo tank's on Felucia, and that's Commander Bly, which came out with the MTT, and the Galactic Marines with Ki-Adi-Mundi and Commander Bakara are on Megiddo with the UT-AT and not a turbo tank. Also, it should be so much larger than it is, just due to the scale. But those are
And
what
the
your
name?
thoughts should be.
And the name?
Oh, nah. Seth is like mid.
So, I have answers for all of you. Jonah was correct on the Lego set. The Imperial Hotel is, I think, my favorite set. Although I do have Rivendell, it's up there.
You
I haven't
built the Imperial Hotel, correct?
No, but I really like it. I do like the turbo tank. It's brick-built wheels, which are very cool. The price tag is a lot. This is what the thing is. I just don't buy that play scale set as much as I did when I was a child. So spending that much means that I couldn't get like 2 New York Skylines, which I don't like because they're in the wrong order. I don't know who decided to build it like that, or design it like that. And you're all wrong about my name. Seth is a great name because it is impossible to mispronounce unless you're actively trying. It's really difficult to misspell, and it is fairly uncommon.
But is it the best name? Those were the words used.
And it's short. Of ours, yeah. I don't know if any of your names
I
meet
think,
those 4 characteristics.
I would say Ward meets all of those.
and as somebody in
Oh,
chat
they
said,
misspell that all of the time. Everybody misspells that. And they just mishear it more often. But
Ward Warren, as somebody in chat pointed out, has the alliteration of either a superhero. They said superhero. I'm going to say superhero or supervillain, just because I
No,
know
it's-
Ward a little bit more than the chatter does.
It doesn't sound like something, so it can't be a supervillain. Like Victor Freeze.
Where were we? We were at an event somewhere recently, and we were hanging out with a bunch of judges after the event, and I gave the bartender my credit card to use for a tab, and they read my name off of the card, and they were like, "That sounds like a superhero name," and handed me my card back.
Was that in Minneapolis?
No, it was in Vegas a few
Okay.
weeks ago. Yeah, the
Alright.
server was like, "That's not your real name."
Incredible. All right. Let's see. We have a question about streaming that we just covered. What deck do you expect will win the Galactic Championship?
Mm.
Kira ECL.
Which ECL?
I don't
Kira
speculate.
ECL.
Interesting.
Kira
The new
ECL?
Vader is nuts for that. The deck is already pretty dominant. It got a lot of new toys. It got better options for what's the new 4 cost? Use the Force, destroy anything non-leader.
Oh yeah. I can't remember.
Counterpoint.
Yeah, Shatterpoint. Good
Yeah,
book too.
Shatterpoint.
Shatterpoint is a great book.
I think you've recommended it.
It's a great miniatures game.
I have
It doesn't
a
have Force
bunch
throw,
of it.
notably, which I think would make for a lot of interesting posts on Facebook.
I think
What?
that like Han 2 is also pretty good, but like I have not been keeping up. I mean, we're not getting. I'm not sure. Like I didn't keep up the last couple weeks of the PQ meta, and things are going to shift with Legends of the Force. Like there are definitely some cards that are going to affect things.
I think blue-green villainy just has a lot of tools, and it has it's still what I consider among the best cards in the format, which is Overwhelming Barrage.
Sometimes it's just about who's piloting it, though. So, I mean,
This is true.
there
Yeah,
can
or
be,
a
there can be those sleeper hits. Somebody's playing really well,
So
or
I will
just picking
say
the right combo of decks that they play against.
Ophir Maram on Kira ECL, if that's what he's playing. I don't know what he's playing. That's the
Kira Tarkin Town could be interesting. Like, I don't hate it, but we'll see.
All right. Another question that I'm just going to take is: will the event as a whole be running to the previously announced structure, or is it being changed, like the American sectors and regionals? I think the only one that had there were some changes between Denver and Richmond based on feedback from Denver. That decision was made, I believe, by FFG in consultation with the tournament organizer for that event. And then the changes to regionals were, again, authorized by FFG after members of the community were like, hey, with this tournament structure, there's going to be this less than optimal play experience. And there was enough time to adjust the tournament structure before it impacted any of the players in a real way before people started playing. I don't believe that there are any plans for the Galactic Championship to change structure. However, if somebody's looking over the tournament structure and is like, hey, this structure means that even if you're undefeated, you won't make the top 8. First of all, I have a lot of questions. Second of all, that doesn't seem great. Maybe we should add an extra round to guarantee that everybody who's undefeated makes the top 8 or something along those lines. Like, there's a chance that something has been overlooked. Somebody points it out. And one of the empowering things of having the publisher there and the publisher acting as the tournament organizer is they can say, this is how it's going to be. We're changing things for the better of the event and for the better of the player experience. So no plans, but I can't say that it won't because I'm not in charge of that. I don't plan on changing it. Some serious questions from Seth Hellman rather than the ones about the name Seth. Are we aware of any timeline for when we might be getting more specifics for assignments? So, for those working Galactics, sent out the survey yesterday. Fill out the survey, please. I'm planning on closing that survey Friday night, and then working on it over the weekend. For folks who are working the Galactic Championship, you should have your assignments by Monday. For folks who are working on the Open, when will folks have that schedule, Amanda? I'm going to just put you on the spot right now.
I'm aiming for the same timeline. So
And
hopefully right around then.
Speaking with Brandon Welch, who's going to be running the scheduled side events, and Felipe Montalvade, who is going to be running on-demand events. I believe they have a similar rough timeline of beginning of next week for schedule. Then turning to Twitch chat because I'm easily distracted. Do we have an idea if there will be breaks between matches for players? No, there will be one scheduled half-hour break in the middle of the day for players between like rounds 3 and 4, I think. Don't hold me to that. But it's between, after some round, as soon as the clock hits 0, there will be a 30-minute break until the next round pairings are posted. Which means for us head judges, that's the round where we're allowed to have the very long investigation and issue that 30 or 40-minute time extension, which we then use. And those two players don't get a lunch break. I have seen that happen so many times where there's a lunch break and there also happens to be a time extension that uses that entire 30 minutes. Like, probably 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. And I don't understand why it happens in that way.
Can I get on a soapbox really quickly?
Please.
So for any event, but especially really large ones, you'll notice that judges are very persnickety when it comes to things taking longer than they should. And it's like, well, that saved you 10 or 15 seconds. Why does that matter so much? And it's because 10 or 15 seconds for an entire event of 2,000 players, that is a lot of people time that you've just saved. If it goes up to a minute, that's 2,000 minutes of time that you've just saved by or spent by doing something unoptimal or I don't know, whatever. And so when there is a lunch break, that half hour is 2,000 half hours worth of time that is being consumed. So breaks are very difficult to schedule into events because they make that event that much longer for that many people.
Right, a half-hour break is 1,000 hours of people time being spent. On the other end of that spectrum, if you are a floor judge and you're thinking about issuing, you're like, I don't know if that deserves a 1-minute time extension, issue that time extension. Give them 2 minutes. Because one of the 5 of us is going to get a call somewhere in the hall, somewhere in the round, and we're going to spend 20 or 30 minutes thinking about it and talking with the other head judges. It's going to be the call that's going to keep us up that night. Your 2-minute time extension is not going to impact the round. What we do is going to slow down the tournament, and I apologize for that. I want to get you to dinner on time, but also I want to make sure that everybody gets a full and proper investigation if I need to be doing one of those.
Which, kind of on that same note, end of round, nobody's asked about this, but just large event logistics. If you haven't worked a tournament that's really large, you might never have heard of an end of round team, which is one of the things that we asked about on the preferences. End of round team is the team that we put in charge of helping us get that turnover done as quickly as possible. So that means when figuring out where the extensions are before we get to the end of round, putting a judge on those matches with time extensions so that they can sit there and they can watch the end of the match and they can be there and answer questions quicker if they come up at the end of match. Helping the player with questions if there are questions about the end of match procedures, making sure that the players know that time has been called or that their extension is done, and help get those done as quickly as possible, because like you multiply by 2,000, you also multiply by the number of rounds in the day. So if you have an 8 or 9 round tournament, anything you can do to shave a couple of minutes off of each round helps at the end of the day. And so we put that team in charge of that. So if you haven't ever heard the term, that's what that is.
Cool. Lethal Logicality asks, do we know how many rounds are scheduled for each day? For the Galactic Championship, it's 8 on Friday, 8 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday before cut to top 8. For the Open, I believe it's 9 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and cut to top 8. Everything else is different but doesn't have multi-day and is generally like 4 rounds. There might be a couple, like one of the rebound events might be more than 4 rounds, but
there's a couple 6-round events.
We've been going for a little bit over an hour. I'm happy to keep on going. If any of you need to dip out for any reason, please feel free to just be like, bye, and get out of here. Otherwise, I'm going to just keep on going through the questions that we have, and quickly answer Mad Dog Max's question. Is there an award ceremony? I don't know. I'm not in charge of the production. That would be a question that either FFG, Asmodee, or the stream team would be able to answer. But y'all are good to keep on going, it seems like, because nobody hit the hang up button. Fantastic. All right. This question I actually really like. what can floor judges do to make our lives easier? Seth.
Remind me at least, and I imagine some of you, although most of you are better at this than I am, to drink water. I will forget. That's an easy thing.
So for me, oh, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, when you're bringing us a situation, please have an idea of what you think, like, the situation is, and then what you think, or where you envision the call going. It, like, helps as the head judge. Like, you've already been involved in the call, so the head judge is going to get into the middle of it. So if you're like, these are the things that happened, these are the questions I asked as you were walking over with an appeal, it can also help us start thinking about it before we get to the table to deal with whatever is the situation.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of goes into what I was going to say, which is the number one thing that I say that I think everybody kind of on an event usually can work on to an extent is communication. So when we're head judging, we're trying to kind of keep an eye on the whole event, but we're often don't see all of the small pieces, and so we don't know things unless those are communicated upward. So if you have a team lead, make sure you're communicating regularly with them so that they kind of know the status. If you have something to bring to us, bring it to us. If we look like we're busy, still step in, and especially if it's an appeal, an investigation, a deviation, one of those big things. Step in, tell us that you have one of those, and we will let you know if we're busy on something important, or it could be that we were just, chatting and catching up about the event or about other things that are going on. So go ahead and interrupt us. And I mean, that can go for just conversation too. Just, maybe keep it brief initially so we can let you know if we're in the middle of something that's live.
Yeah. On that, like, don't reserve interrupting, at least me, for just high priority calls. So frequently, I will be talking with somebody about something that is not related to the event in the slightest.
It's usually books.
I know that at regionals with Ben and Matthew, the head judge team, we had what looked like, somebody was like, what were you three talking? It looked very serious. Like, there were furrowed brows. We were talking about books. We were talking about Star Wars books. We're big old nerds, and we like to talk about nerd things. And so much of the time, like, if I don't have something that I need to be doing, one of the reasons I like judging so much is talking to the people about shared common interests. And if you're like, hey, I just want to talk to you because I had some feedback on, like, how you handle the morning briefing, or I had questions about how I can get into leadership positions, or I just wanted to talk about, like, this ruling, or I had something that I felt weird about and I wasn't sure how to, like, my team lead did something, I'm not sure if it's appropriate or not. Like, or if you're like, hey, I want to get to know you as a human better, please feel free to come up and be like, hey, can I steal a minute of your time to just chat with you? Please do that. One of my goals, whenever I'm in a leadership position, which I'm getting worse and worse at, actually, is talk to everybody on my staff. Part of this is because my staff's sizes have been increasing, and so when it was like 5 judges, very easy. I could talk to everybody on the team over the course of 10 hours. When it was 20 judges, it was tough, but I just need to talk to like 2 people every round and 2 people on my break. I could do it. When we're looking at 50 people, no. But I want to talk to all of you. I want to genuinely have a conversation with you about something that isn't a judge call or a judge task. Like, if all we get is that judge call or judge task, that's fine. But, like, talking about an interest or, like, what got you into the game or got you into judging, I love that. Please come interrupt me. That makes my life easier because it helps me relax a little bit and helps me have more fun. And the more fun I'm having, the easier it is for me to handle the more stressful moments.
I'd like to comment on something somebody said in the chat, just to kind of side rail us just a second. Somebody said to get all the information before you take it to the head judge. I want to caveat that, because I think I like the sentiment behind it, but I'm worried by the all. Sometimes you're not going to ever be able to get all of the information, first off. Second off, there are some situations where we would rather you get the head judges involved earlier rather than later, because we know it's going to take a lot of time and the head judge is going to get involved anyway. And so we would rather take that time once with the head judge there than take that time twice. So it is good to get the story so that you have a full story to take to the head judges, but especially if it's an investigation, please get us involved sooner rather than later. You can get the initial story, get enough to get a feel that you think that this could be cheating or there could be something fishy going on. But if you're headed that direction, please do get us involved earlier rather than later, and don't try to get all of the information first.
Cheat code to getting all of the information: take out your phone, take a picture of the board state. You now know all of the cards that were in play. You know their status. You know how many resources each player had. You maybe even know how many cards each player has in hand or how much deck they have left generally. And you didn't even have to count or think. That's something that I never do and is so helppful when I do. I go to somebody and I'm like, hey, here's all of the information, because it is in fact all of the information. There was something else that I forgot. Somebody else talked for a minute while I try to remember that.
I have two more serious responses than just reminding me to get water, which is to, one, take care of yourselves. So remember to get water yourself, or remind each other to get water. But seriously, self-advocating if you need, if you were just involved in an investigation or in one of those contentious calls and you need to take a moment off the floor, talk to your team lead. Usually that can be arranged. I can't promise anything because we don't know what the event looks like, but I want floor judges, I want everybody to be in a good space, and if you are not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of the players, which is what we're here for. And then also, one way that you can do that that's a little bit less intuitive is to shadow each other. Having another judge at a call who's not interacting with the players but is just listening is really useful, to be able to feel like somebody has your back and to be able to say, all right, folks, I think I have an answer for you. I'm going to consult with my colleague really quickly to make sure that it is the best answer. And then you have somebody to talk away from the table with, even if that is just to, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I just needed to be away from the table to think that through for a second. Having someone right there saves you from having to go find them. It also allows you to have somebody to stay and watch the table if you need to go get a head judge, or to go get them for you, or a team lead, or if you need to separate the players, you have another judge right there. And if you're shadowing, then it gives you an opportunity to learn from the person who's taking the call, and also to potentially, if they're maybe not giving the best answer for the call, to say, hey, let me speak to you away from the table for a second before you deliver that ruling. Please don't undermine another judge at the table. I've accidentally done it before, and it feels awful to both have that happen to you and to have done it. And I don't want any of you to have that experience. But still, shadow. It is great.
So I remembered my thought, unless somebody else has something else to add. So when you come to anybody for a consultation or whatever, one, preface it with live call. If it's live, just be like, this is live. If it's not live, be like, hypothetical, or I finished this call, I'm just looking for more understanding. I know what the answer is, but I just, if it's live, let us know. If it's not live, also let us know, whether it's us, team lead, or just another judge, because we're going to come up to you with hypotheticals and be like, hey, so if a player controls an Ezra, a Leia, and plays Rebel Assault, and the top 17 cards of the deck are this, what happens next? That's not a live call. We can break that away from that. The other part is when you do come to somebody for a consultation of any sort, whether it's for talking about a rewind or reversing decisions, card manipulation error, game loss, appeal, investigation, tell the person that you're talking to what part of your story is the important part before you start telling the story. So for an investigation, it's like, I believe this player intentionally drew an extra card so that they'd be able to do this. Here's what happened. And here's the information I've gathered. And so now I know what I am looking for when you give me that information. Or I have an appeal. The player doesn't think that they should be getting a penalty point for this infraction. Now I know, what I care about, which is, does this meet the requirements for a penalty point? Whereas if the question is something along the lines of like, they're not happy with the time extension or they don't like the fix, that changes what I pay attention to throughout your explanation. And knowing that beforehand saves me a lot of brain power. Cool. Anybody else got anything on that?
Quick note, remember where the call was if you're coming to get an appeal. Because as someone who has brought a head judge over and be like, I truly do not remember where this table is, it's
in
not a
this
thing you want to
quadrant
do.
of the room. It's one of these 500 tables. And
They will be hard to find.
Seth, were you going to mention the piece of sweet tech?
I was not, but I know what you're talking about. Go for it.
So a piece of technology that I've seen recently is when you take a call and need to walk away from the table. I don't love it. Ward hates it.
I do hate it, but it's fine.
It is very functional and can cause problems. Take the table number with you. Just take it off the table, because now you have it and you will not forget what that table number is because it's in your hand. Another version is if
return it.
yes, you do need to come back to the table. Another way to do this is if you're taking a picture of the board, say take a picture of the table number, make sure it's there, it's on your phone, write it down on a notebook. Don't just remember in your head. The number of times I've been like, okay, 182, 182, 182. Let me explain to you. They asked me a couple questions. Cool, let's go back there. And then you just look down the aisles looking for the players who are just looking lost. Yeah.
And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they zone out and they don't even look lost. But I would. Yep. The other thing I would add to that is the time. And somebody put this in the chat already, but not just the time you walk away, but what you really want is that time you start the call, and that's for every call you take. And was one of the skills I found the very hardest early in my judge career was when you start walking up to the table. As soon as you see that hand up, first thing you should be thinking about is looking at the clock and seeing what the time is, and if at all possible, write it down, because that's another one you won't remember. So write that down.
Yeah, do that, please, or you'll forget like me. God, I've gotten better. It's taken a decade for me to start looking at the clock.
And we say look at the clock, look at the round timer. Not I took this call at 1:32. We're all bad at math, and just I took the call with 27 minutes remaining in the round is much easier for us to deal with.
Sometimes for side events, we really will be using the clock time, and that will be what you're using primarily. But for the Galactics and for the Open, we should have big timers, and that's the better time to use.
I also know that some people have stopwatches that they just have on like a lanyard around their belt, which works for some people. I don't think it would work for me, because I would just, 2 minutes into it, I'd be like, right, the clock, yes, go. All right, we're guessing wildly here.
Somebody asked if there are any table numbers. Yes, there will be one continuous set of table numbers, so we'll be numbering from 1 to up to
1,500, something like that. McFerguson has a fun question. What do you do if the players don't wait for the judges and try to fix it on their own while you are you're like, I need to go consult with somebody, I'll be back in a minute, and the players are like, we're just gonna do it anyway.
So, this one, I have many thoughts on this, and here's my... If we're going to issue an infraction, we can issue the infraction. If the players are happy with the fix, and it's not, disastrously bad... Are the players are happy with it? Did they do something with the extra card that was drawn? Chances are they've all interacted with this before and they know what the fix is going to be, right? If what the players did isn't the end of the world, and if I need to issue a penalty, I can still issue a penalty here, but it's not the end of the world, in my opinion.
Sometimes players agree on a fix that they can agree on, but we can't give, and it works better for their situation than what. Or let me rephrase that a little bit. Sometimes a floor judge might not be able to provide a fix, and the players come up with something that works better for them than what the floor judge would be able to give, and might be some unusual circumstance that would require a deviation from us that could save some time. The thing you have to be really careful about is making sure that one player isn't kind of bullying the other player into doing this, whatever this fix looks like, and two, that this isn't covering up potential cheating.
Yeah, I was to say, if it feels weird at all to you, go get your team lead. Come get one of us. I think probably actually just mostly get one of us. If they fix something and you think that it's because they're trying to hide something, they're trying to get out of that penalty. If something feels off, just come get one of us.
I'm gonna say really quick on the get help note. I've seen this recommendation a couple of different places. Please don't just turn away from the table and yell for judge while you're in the middle of a judge call. Just let the players know to pause for a second. If the person you need isn't right next to you, but someone else is, you can go, hey, real quick, can you go grab Jonah? I need a head judge. And then come back to your table. Or have them stand at the table and you can then go get the head judge, which is better, by the way, if the person who's actually interacted with the players comes to get us. But, if you need a team lead for an approval or whatever, sometimes it's easier to, if the players are contentious, or you want to make sure you leave a judge there. But don't just call for a judge yourself. It looks weird. I'm going to say that it looks unprofessional. That's an opinion, not fact. Yeah.
I think it is reasonable for a judge to call for a judge if you are in a call or in the middle of a task and there is another call, and just raising your hand, shouting judge, and then indicating somebody please take care of that. That happens. Also, judges are so much better at calling for a judge than players are. Partially because you're standing up.
Just don't do it in the player's ear. So make sure you at least step away from the table enough that you're not yelling right at the people that you're trying to help.
Yeah, the one thing that you should be doing when you're taking calls, or that I like to do and I think is good, is to kind of get down on the player's level without interrupting the flow of traffic as much as possible. I've tripped somebody with my leg while standing next to it, or like kneeling next to a table. But you don't yell for a judge while you're kneeling next to a table. Also, one of the other places, or one of the other ways that it can be awkward to ask for help is don't message any Discord asking for the answer for a rules question while at any event, really. Unless you're solo judging and you truly have no one else there to help, and especially at the GC where you will have plenty of other judges, the Discord might not know how we want things to be done, especially if there's a ruling that has been made for this event, like we were talking about earlier, where we want to stay consistent for all of the matches. It's better to talk to somebody else and escalate it as far as you need to. If we don't know the answer, we do have access to FFG, who could probably give us an answer in a worst case scenario.
Although a lot of the developers will be in panels and developer duels on the other side of the hall and won't be accessible. And so don't expect, if you're playing, to have the rules admiral or one of the lead designers come up and tell you how your card works. If you are like, hey, can I appeal to Ryan or Danny or Tyler, the answer will be no. They are not on staff for this event. I am your final answer.
The buck stops there. Going back to things that you can do to help us as head judges is tell your locals, anyone you know who's going to Galactics, how to call for a judge, which involves 2 steps. 1, yelling really loudly, and 2, keeping their hand in the air, or your hand in the air, until the judge arrives at that table. If all the players do that well, our job is good. Everyone's job is going to be a lot easier.
Also, if there are mistakes in your game, call a judge. We aren't there to super penalize. We just want to fix things. And we do want players calling us when there are things going on in their match.
The number of times a player comes up and it says, hey, in the last round, I think my opponent did something fishy. And I'm like, cool. Tell me the story, but there's nothing I can do here. Like, if you called me over when it happened, which is when you noticed it, I could have investigated. But now, like, I could go to your opponent and be like, hey, did you cheat? And they'll say no. And I'll be like, I mean, there's more that you can do there. There's a little bit more that you can do. But if something went wrong, call for a judge. We're there to help. All right, I have some more questions. A couple that I'm just going to tackle real quick are that we can't answer. Next year, can we bring in more international judges? That's a staffing question. We're not in charge of staffing. I wish desperately that happens, but I have no control over that. And then judge shirts available. There will be some for the staff for the event. They will be for the event, not general judge program shirts. Then what types of judge calls are you best at, and what situations or factors contributed to this skill? I think one of the ones that I am very good at are card counts or base damage total discrepancies. That was something that I just had no practice in, was bad at, felt I was bad at, and then they are very objective calls. It's how many cards does this player have in their hand? How many times have they been attacked? Like, there are facts here. Like, the damage you've taken is all public information. It's all recoverable. And so extracting those facts from players is something that I've developed a skill from. And also, I just really enjoy them. It's just very satisfying to be like, okay, 5 minutes ago, none of us knew what the truth was. Now all of us agree that this absolutely is the truth. Because sometimes a person will be like, I think my opponent has too many cards in hand. And we go through it, and the answer is, nope, they have the correct number of cards in hand. They're like, still seems like a lot of cards, but the math is the math. They've drawn 2 extra cards from various sources. They have 2 more cards total than me. Okay, I guess. And just getting to a place where they're just like, this is the truth, is just very satisfying for me.
Yeah, so I think my best event skill is actually logistics. So it's not the calls themselves, but it's the how is the event running, and keeping the event running well. But if I had to say on calls, I think it's the gray area policy calls. So the areas that aren't quite policy, that we need to look at what the philosophy of the game policy is, and we need to figure out what we're going to do in the situation that isn't exactly black and white in the policy.
Mine is rules stuff. I've always been the rules person, and I enjoy reading rules. So those are I'm gonna say I'm not Ashland level rules person, but I feel that I'm pretty good with rules.
Seth Ward, anything to add on this, or thinking, percolating?
Folks tend to come to me a lot with complex investigations. It's a thing I've been good at for a very long time. If you talk to me at any amount of time, you'll learn that I've had a very interesting career path in my life, are the words I'm going to use. I spent 6 years working in a lockdown mental hospital, and got to spend a lot of time not investigating people themselves, but behaviors and interactions and the way that people communicate, and figuring out the different paths and just lines for how to get the information you want. In that line of work can be very similar to players when you're investigating, and the different ways to approach questions. So that is something that I find myself getting, not going to say dragged into, because I welcome them, but utilized for a lot at events. Either when head judges have a difficult investigation and they just want someone to bounce an idea off of, or a thought process, or when I'm head judging and getting involved in doing the investigations.
I think Ward just volunteered to take all the difficult...
I did not. I did not.
I guess it's funny because rounding us off, the thing that I think I'm good at is the de-escalation and talking to people, explaining things, getting everyone on the same page. Whether that's people disagreeing about rules and not understanding how something like that works, or having to calm down somebody who's particularly heated. And I'm going to tie that into Wolf Strider's question because I think that. Oh,
We're gonna get
sorry.
to that in a second.
I was so. I had such a good segue.
I know. I want to just quickly address McFerguson's question with regards to preferred fix for a case where both players missed the upgrade attachment restriction was missed, that sort of thing. I don't want to address that here because I think the way each of us would handle it would depend on exactly what was in play, exactly what was said, the communication of the board. Like, for those sorts of situations that aren't very cleanly fixed by policy, by something other than like leave as is or game loss, which are both unhappy resolutions, it depends so much on what is there. And like, it's one that I can't answer what I would do without seeing all of the cards in play. But this next question from Wolfstrider562, continuing to talk about skills that you feel you're great at, that you feel you can teach others. And then the follow-up to that, which we'll get after we go around in the circle, is what is a skill that you're trying to improve on over time? So let's start with the skills that we can teach. Seth, you had a tie-in.
Yeah, but the segue doesn't work with an interruption.
No,
it's fine.
No, you have to still do it now.
You just jump the gap.
I don't remember what I said 30 seconds ago. How do you expect me to jump the gap?
Twitch chat, what did Seth say 30 seconds ago?
Oh, right, we have a fourth person.
You sat on that for a while.
I did.
I was so ready for, like, while I was doing the intro an hour and a half ago, for you to just start spamming the soundboard. Seth, I'm giving you time to remember.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Not sure how helpful it's going to be. I was talking about how I do de-escalation, and I think these are very teachable skills. I worked at a summer camp for a while, which helped with this, because not for dealing with the kids, that's part of the explaining maybe, but when you're working 24/7 with like 90 other 18 to 25-year-olds, you need to be able to de-escalate situations, and you need to be able to teach other counselors how to de-escalate situations. But not only that,
like being in that age bracket.
I'm sure if you go back far enough, you'd find a photo or a cave painting of you.
That one.
My mom is a mediator/arbitrator, which is the career profession of de-escalation and conflict resolution, and she teaches classes that I've had to put into PowerPoints for her, so that has helped with these skills, and I think that they are very teachable. Not all of it, because a lot of it is reading people and learning emotional intelligence, which some people are naturally better at than others, but these are things that you can learn, and that I would be delighted to teach once Cascade has the ability to hire people to create content for them.
Sure, I'll take that whole thrown straight at my face.
I know no further comments.
I think you're talking about teaching at the event too, so not like you need like I think that's part
I think this is also.
We talked earlier about leadership and what you can do to start, but that is a big part of leadership at these events, is mentoring and teaching and helping judges who maybe don't have experience with that particular aspect of judging, or looking to grow. Right, that is a large portion of judge growth happens at events. So, as far as my specific skills, I touched on logistics. I think that's part of it. I think communication is also part of that, and helping some of the newer team leads with those early leadership skills. Policy can be. I'd say the one that I'm weak on and really looking to improve is rules. bring a lot of judge experience from outside of the Star Wars Unlimited universe, but I have less experience with Star Wars, so I have judged, judged obviously here, but that isn't my primary strength. So that is one I'm still working on.
I would.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say mine. I work a lot on side events, so it's just kind of the like introduction to big events. The like, I'm running an event for the first time. I'm not sure what's happening. Those kind of like bringing the judges the like step up from the store level events to the large events, and then it kind of help people kind of find what it is. I also, as I said earlier, I've been doing this for a long time, so there's not a lot of things that I've not dealt with at some point. So people will come to me with, "Hey, I have these situations," and I usually have experienced it at some point. Say the thing that I'm working on, I guess we'll just skip over because Amanda did it. Like investigations, it's a very hard skill to practice, except in the real world. So it's just like getting more experience with it, condensing how long it takes because I take too long and ask too many questions. So kind of getting it down with that.
I think for me, one of my strengths and a thing that I get to exercise a lot is big picture views. Looking at an event and knowing how and to what extent something that's going on is going to impact things, how to anticipate potential problems, how to head off problems, and how to create a better event experience for players is really where I excel. Being able to look at a room and say, "There's a problem over there. This is a solution," and just having a solution. Is the solution I come up with always the best one or the most ideal? Not necessarily. I didn't say that. No one heard it. But
That is.
but
This is going to be a VOD on YouTube.
yeah, great. But it is a solution, and it's a workable solution, and it's the one that I'm going to go with unless someone has another one right now. Right? There are a lot of events where after the event I'm like, man, now that I've thought about it for 10 minutes, this other thing would have been so much better. But in the moment, when you have to make a decision, when there's a imminent problem or an imminent situation that you have to fix, sometimes just relying on years of experience and going, this is what I want to do. This is what we're going to do unless someone else has an idea. And I usually just get blank looks and I go, all right, great, let's do that. Let's just go. But as far as the teachable part of it is teaching people to look at events as a bigger picture other than just, I know I'm just the deck checks team, but how do deck checks impact the event as a whole? And how can you, through the little things that you're doing throughout the day, make the event better for everyone, is a skill that I try to teach, not always successfully. Something that I could be better at is definitely being nicer. I'm a grump. I'm old.
But you sound so gentle, Ward.
I'm watching chat. They clearly have not worked with me. But I've been told that I can be scary. In fact, I have a Facebook chat with a bunch of my friends who are all judges, and I believe last week there was a picture of me that was posted somewhere on the internet, and they were critiquing the photography and how the photographer could have tried to make me look less scary or have a smaller nose or look less fat. But you have the good friends when they can point out all your flaws, right? But yeah, just being kinder is not something I excel at, as many of you will know. So
I think for me, the thing that I can teach other people. I mean, there's a lot that I'm teaching folks. See also the rest of the judge program. So it feels weird to pick one thing, but I think something that I'm particularly good at is taking a person and working with them and making them the best person they can be. I much prefer an individualized mentorship style, which is why I'm mentoring thousands of judges. But taking somebody and being like, okay, let's, like, you messed up this ruling. Why? What is the problem that we're having in learning the rules? Not what is the... I don't care about teaching individual rules to individual people isn't something that I'm great at. Writing these classes, that sort of thing, I do have a background, like, both of my parents were in education, and I have some, like, informal training in that area, and so, like, doing those classes, I'm fine. I think it's acceptable level of quality. But, like, on a one-on-one level, I would much rather, because I have the time to work with a single person, let's figure out what the roadblocks are to you being able to learn without me walking you through it. Or, like, if there's something else that you struggle with, and at some point, probably in August, maybe September, I plan on, like, just having a bunch of qualities of judges, or aspects of judging. I think aspects is what we're going to go with to stay on theme. So we'll talk about your command, your vigilance, your cunning, your aggression. You really liked that one, didn't you,
Don't do
Ward?
that.
But talking about how you can improve your leadership, because that was something that I struggled with for a very long time. I know some people don't believe it, but I am an introvert. I would rather stay here 99% of the time than leave the building at all. And I have, like, for many years of my judge career, I was rated as deficient in leadership. I think I've gotten past deficient to at least adequate. But figuring out how, as a quiet, somewhat socially anxious introvert, to become somebody who is a public presence online, develop a bearing of authority and command so people listen to me when I tell them what to do. That has taken a lot of time and effort, and there also happens to be a corollary between participation in judge programs and being introverted, quiet, or shy, or some combination of them. And so there are a lot of people who are interested in leadership positions who are coming from a similar background, and helping those folks improve over time. I mean, the question of what is a skill that you're trying to improve on over time with judging, everything short of perfection is irrelevant. Actually, everything. Like, my investigations, terrible. My mentorship, terrible. My leadership, terrible. Like, it's adequate. It's not actually terrible, it's adequate, but I could, like, I know that I'm not the best at anything, and so, like, when I work with a judge who's really incredible at investigations, I'm just like, holy crap, they just told, you asked 2 questions, they're like, yeah, I did it. You're like, how did you do that? I cannot do that. And with, like, my rules knowledge, very good. I've read the CR so many times. I've had a ton of conversations. But there are people who are better at rules than I am. There are people who are better at pretty much everything than I am. And there's just so much... I've been doing this for a decade, and I feel like there's just so much room for growth. But it's also... That growth is harder to track. Like, when you start off judging, you go from, I don't know how to give a ruling, to, I know how to give a ruling. And where I'm at, it's just like, I'm getting half a percentage point improvement, which is something. It's not visible, it doesn't feel like I'm improving, but then I also look back and see where I was a year ago, and I was just worse than I was a year ago. I've gotten some great opportunities in the past year and have grown in a bunch of different ways.
I think one thing you'll find common among all of the judges who are here and in these roles is that we all are growth minded, and that we are all looking at ourselves and going, hey, I could be better here, and how do I keep getting better?
Yeah.
Except maybe Ward.
Because Ward's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. I haven't. I thought we were doing the thing that we can improve on after we did
Yeah,
the
but
other
everybody
things.
else started doing that.
Oh,
We
actually,
were.
Amanda started it, so I just followed what she did.
Yeah. So Seth followed the rules for once.
Which
Why are
also
you
means
so
that I am the
shocked?
only
Like, go
one who
ahead.
doesn't have something to improve. So I don't know what you're talking about,
Bet.
Amanda. No, the answer is that I want to improve on all of these things that we've all been talking about. I don't think there is a single thing that I am done with in terms of what we've been talking in anything. I don't think there's anything where I'm done learning, um, which is, I guess, actually proving Amanda's point.
Amanda's smart, turns out. Uh,
Alrighty, I'm
Alright.
seeing one more question in Discord, and currently no more questions in chat, so if you want to have us drag this out even longer, please throw them in chat. The question from Discord, there it is. Will less experienced judges have opportunities to shadow floor judge for any of the competitive events? Short answer, yes. There are a lot of folks who are apprentices who are going to be on the Galactic Championship. I think on Friday, somebody who's better at math than me, like 50-ish out of 50 or 60 out of like 70 or 80 judges will be on Galactics. And so that's the majority of staff. But like judge growth, as Amanda was just saying, like a lot of individual judges have this growth mindset. The community, I want the community to also have a growth mindset. Like when I am building a staff schedule, I look to see, okay, I want to put a couple of rocks in leadership positions so that the event will function. Then I want to put some people who are reaches in leadership positions so that the program can continue to grow. But if anybody has anything to add on new or less experienced judges getting experience and opportunities, and thoughts on that.
What do we call? We're calling the support judge role as assistant head judge. That's what we're calling it, right?
I believe that's the official term.
That's the official title. I'm calling you my head judge team. There are 17 different names out there.
We are the Senate.
So I think this is in relation to Mad Dog Max TV's question about who's leading what areas and who are we and why are we in front of you right now. Yeah, Jonah's the head judge for the Galactics. Amanda is the head judge for the what are they calling
The
that?
Open.
The Open.
The Open. The Saturday
event.
Galactic Open?
No.
I think
And
it's
then
just Open.
Ben, Seth, and I are the rest of the head judge team for these events. It's our job to make sure that the competitive/professional events for the weekend function. And that's what we're doing. There's some other folks who are in charge of side events and the different areas there, but that's what we are.
Cool. Any more thoughts on shadowing, mentorship, that sort of thing? And any questions from chat?
There was one question in Discord that we didn't answer that I'll get to after this quick thought on mentorship, which is that it doesn't matter how experienced you are, there is always something that you probably can teach and something that you probably still can learn. That's the view that I have.
A thing about mentorship is it extends outside of events. If you know someone else who's on staff for this event and you would like some feedback, ask them before the event. Once you know who your team lead is and you're like, hey, this is my first time doing X, one, I'm going to need to learn, but two, can you help me at the end of the weekend with either providing me either at the event, which is harder, by the way, you don't have a ton of time for that, or, you know, can we message back and forth or email back and forth so I can hear about how I did and can take that to my next event and continue to improve beyond the event itself. Communicate beforehand.
Continuing that thought about mentorship outside of this event is if you are on this event and you do learn things, then it's great to take those back to your communities at home too, right? Like that, the times when we have big events and we can all work together and we can learn from each other at those events, we should then take those and apply them when we're working with other judges and help mentor them in those things that we learn too.
Also, like the folks who are working, even if it's your first large event, and for many people it will be, or first event of this scale or level of prestige, even if you feel like you're a fish out of water, this is like you don't know what's happening, you have a lot that you can teach. Like I've learned stuff from people on their first events very frequently. Someone's like, hey, why did you do that? And then I have to think about why I did the thing, and I'm able to interrogate and take something out of it. And so like asking questions is a great way to help other people grow. But also there are going to be a lot of people who are in a very similar boat who have not a ton of experience either. And so you go and be like, hey, I just did this thing. How does that sound to you? And the two of you can just have a conversation about how you feel about that point of policy or that rule, or how you like. I just had this ruling. I explained it to a player. They were fine with it, but it didn't seem like they really understood it. So I think they now know this ruling, but not the rule or the general interaction. How could I explain this better? And just talking to people is hugely helpful. Also, asking for specifics. Like Ward said, ask for feedback at the beginning of the weekend. Ask for specific feedback. I know several of us just said, I want to get better at everything. That's the worst thing you can say when you're asking for feedback. Other than, I'm perfect, I don't need feedback. But the more specific you are and the earlier you ask for it, the easier it is for you to get that feedback. If you say, I want to get better at everything, and you tell me, and at the end of the weekend say, hey, how did I do? I want to get better at everything. I'm like, you did fine. If you come to me before the weekend and say, hey, I want to get better at just the process of issuing a ruling, just like the language that I use to explain the rules of the game to players. I can try and shadow you for a couple calls. I'm going to be very busy and I'm not sure how much mentoring I'm going to be able to do. I'm going to try as much as I can. But I can shadow you for a couple calls and then be like, cool, these are the things that I saw you do. These are the things that I saw the players respond well to, the things that I saw them respond poorly to. Here are the things that I do. Let's get very specific and very focused. And it can be hard early on to identify where you're weak or where you want to improve, because it feels like there is a lot, which is why we say that we want to improve on a lot. But it also can just be a conversation. Be like, hey, I want to get better at everything. What do you think I should focus on first? And then we can have a conversation of, well, okay, what do you know that you're good at? Because I hope that you think you're good at something. Great. Do we want to prioritize building up our strengths and supporting our weaknesses through that strength? Or do we want to like even out and be a jack of all trades, master of none? So many conversations.
Yeah, another thing that I want to point out is if you don't know something that you want to improve on specifically, sometimes taking time to follow another judge and watch what they do and ask questions. Hey, why did you take that judge call that way? Hey, why when you were doing that deck check did you do it that way? I hadn't seen it before. Help me to understand. Can start larger conversations that end up in meaningful interactions that educate both you and sometimes the person who you're asking the question of. Like, hey, you did this really awesome thing. Do you have a moment that we can talk about that so that I can learn about it? Is a good way to, by the end of the weekend, have had 10 conversations about this thing and you learning a new skill. I will say that, asking for feedback can be a double-edged sword. When you ask for feedback, realize that it's not just you did great in these environments. Sometimes it comes along with the you really shouldn't do this, and here's some reasons why. Here's some reasons why we've stopped doing this thing. For those of us that have been around forever, some things are like, well, why don't we still do it this way? And this new judge that I've never heard of is like, oh, well, this is why we don't do this. And I'm like, that makes sense, or sometimes doesn't. And then we can have a conversation about, where in the middle can we meet. But having ideas is not bad. learning from other people is good.
I would say also kind of think about what are your long-term goals? If you're like, I want to be a very good store judge who occasionally does bigger events, or I want to take Jonah's job from him. Like, people you're talking to can help you kind of on the path. Be like, all right, you are at this point, you want to get here. What's the next step that we can look at? And then how can we get you to that point?
Cool.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Seth.
I was just going to bring up the other question that I saw in Discord. So if you have more things on this topic, that's fine.
I could talk about this for hours, so you should probably move on.
Spend 2 hours. Yeah.
Yes.
There's so much, so
So
many
much.
intricate things and so many different ways to learn. Yes, I believe that you could talk about this for hours. The question I think was a decent one to end on, which is the top 3 favorite places to eat in Vegas.
Oh, I'll go last.
So my 3 favorite places to eat, I'm going to go first, are, for me, it's going to be the lunch that's catered to me and that I don't have to spend money or make a decision on. That those, like, 1, 2, and 3, just right there, the food that is free that I don't have to think about. Love it. Perfect. Every time, no questions asked.
That's your top 3, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did go to, a incredible steak restaurant. My uncle, who was playing in the
Which
World
area?
Series of Poker, took me to someplace in the Sahara that was.
Was it the Wolfgang Puck restaurant?
No. I can't remember the name of it.
You told me the name and I can't remember.
Very good, way out of my price range, but yeah, no, the catering. That's where you're gonna find me every single meal.
Okay. Ben, I'm interested to hear yours.
Mine would be Best Friend, which is like LA Korean fusion. Din Tai Fung, which is dim sum. Probably China Poblano, which is like Mexican Asian fusion. I don't know. The best part of going to Vegas is eating, so I have a lot of thoughts about it. You can always reach out to me on the Discord and we can have more conversations about Vegas food.
The best thing about Vegas is leaving.
No, I love Vegas. I'm going to be there 5 times this year, and I'm loving every minute
Oh
of it.
God.
Oh,
Amanda?
Yeah, this is the third for several of us.
Yeah.
I like trying the new places and trying different places. I would say, there's a bunch of really good, really expensive places, but my favorite, just like when lunch is not catered, random lunch, is Capriati sandwiches. They have a Thanksgiving sandwich. No, they don't call it that, but it's basically turkey and dressing and cranberry sauce on a sandwich. It's delicious. So
It's called
that's
the
my
Bobby,
favorite.
for anyone looking to order.
Yeah. So
It's good.
It's a chain now, but I had it very first time at an event in Vegas, and I just DoorDash it to the convention center when they're not providing lunch.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Best Friend as my like fancier option, but my other 2 are in more reasonable budgets, which is Neko Sushi, which is my favorite all-you-can-eat sushi place. They bring, which I mean, it's in a desert, so why would it not be your favorite all-you-can-eat sushi place? The fish tastes very fresh. It comes out very quickly. It is a very good price, and they give you good proportions of fish to rice. So all great. I've eaten much higher quality sushi, even in Vegas, but for all you can eat, this is fantastic, and it is still very good quality. And then Tacos El Gordo is an excellent taco place where they serve like 6 things. That's all you can get, and it is much more helpful if you speak Spanish, because I mean everybody who's in there speaks English, but all of the you.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
Don't spoil all the fun now, Seth.
Thank you for saving me from that hole I was digging.
okay. So
Just ask somebody about how to order, because it's confusing, and
We took
Maybe
Amanda
if I
there
went
for the
back,
first
I would
time.
enjoy it. The first time I did not at
If
all
if you
because
if you don't
I
know how to
like
order,
know what I'm doing when I go into a restaurant. I don't want to be guessing and having to go to 3 different lines to order my dinner.
So, 2 restaurant names, actual names. The steakhouse that I went was Bizarre Meat.
That's the Jose Andres restaurant, correct?
Yeah.
And then Sunday night, the last time I was in Vegas, a hole in the wall burrito place that was like near the staff party. Saylitas had burritos that were genuinely like this big for the same price as like a Taco Bell burrito. It was very good, very functional, just very good food. But Ward,
So Seth, I recently learned that you're incorrect, and the Win is definitely better than Bacchanal. I had
I
never
did
been
not
to the
like
Win
Witherspoon.
until recently, but anyway, neither of those are on my list of 3. I
No.
tend to be in for food more for the experience than the convenience. My Vegas excursions recently, I think every Monday after a Vegas show this year, last year, and the year before has been Hell's Kitchen for me. Getting to enjoy Hell's Kitchen with friends is worth it. It is expensive, but it is very good. There's a place fairly close to the Venetian. It's almost directly behind the Venetian, called Cleaver. That has the best cheesecake I think I've ever had.
it's true. It's incredibly fluffy, and we
it's
always end up there ordering that.
Yeah, the cheesecake.
Despite it being a steakhouse.
It's a steakhouse. It's a steakhouse, but you can set your fork on the cheesecake and it cuts itself. The cheesecake is that fluffy. It is insanely good. It's a big portion. If you get the chance to go out to eat with me, you'll find that I'm somewhat quirky with my food, and I'd like to order dessert first because I want to be able to enjoy my dessert no matter what, and then I'll get the rest of the meal. And then a couple hidden gems in Vegas that aren't very far from the Venetian, right next to Cleaver.
Quick question. How many is 3?
More than 2.
Okay, good. We're on track then. Just checking.
More than 2. Is right next to Cleaver, there's a place called Tacos and Beer that is kind of a local hangout. It's never really busy the times I've been. Their margaritas are great. The tacos are cheap. Dining indoors, and which you probably don't want to do in July, but outdoors. And it's just a kind of a good local hangout. I do recommend Tacos El Gordo at least once. The food there is just actually fantastic. It's a little confusing at first. You can get
horchata on tap.
You can get some
somebody
unique meats.
actually explain how to order before you go into the restaurant if you're like me and need that explanation.
Yeah, you can get some unique meats. They have brain and eyes, tongue, jowls, face meat, in addition to the normal types of taco stuffings. Yeah, I could talk about Vegas food for days, but I stuck to 4, Jonah. I stuck to 4.
Is that 4? I wasn't counting.
That was 4. It's Tacos and Beer and Tacos El Gordo were, tacos. They're delicious.
All right, so we're about to wrap up. Something that I want all y'all to think about while I answer a quick question from chat. Is there anything else you want to just let people know and if it's just, I'll see you in Vegas, that is a perfectly reasonable answer. We've been doing this for over 2 hours. But question in chat that I just want to address, Judge League when or Judge Tournaments. That's something that I would love to help facilitate at some point. I have some ideas. I just need some time to sit down and figure out the logistics of it so that we can support them in a way that makes it a fun experience for everybody, especially internationally across many months or something along those lines. But with that, anyone have anything that they'd like to add? Are we all done here?
I will bring a box of some set to play at some point.
Is it going to be Star Wars cards?
Yes, it will be Star Wars cards. I could bring a board game, but that is not what I'm intending. We may not have time. We might. But if anyone wants to play maybe Twilight, maybe Shadows draft, let me know.
Cool. Amanda, Ben, Ward, anything to add?
Nope.
Fantastic.
No,
Ooh.
looking forward to meeting everybody that I haven't worked with yet and getting to know everybody.
Yeah, I just want to say, I've been involved with season 0 a lot through being the TO for the being one of the TO staff for the sectors and the regionals, and getting to actually take some time and getting to judge next to you and being in the trenches is going to be a lot of fun for me. I don't get to do it a lot, so.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you all for joining me in this 1 hour conversation. Chat, thank you for sticking around for the 2 hours that it actually took, and for your questions throughout. My next broadcast is Friday. I'll be back here talking about something. The lesson goes live tomorrow. I pay attention to these things. I'm not a little manic these days, but I'll see you in the next one. All right. Talk to you folks later. Bye.